What's up, guys? Welcome to Terra Nova Online. My name is Ashley, this is my helper Junie, and we are so pumped because it is the big game weekend. I don't know if I'm allowed to say Super Bowl, to be honest, but anyways, we're so excited. It's also Jersey weekend, so if you're watching online, wear your jersey. In person, wear your jersey, and maybe snap a pic of you wearing it, post it on your social media, make sure to tag Terra Nova, and we might pick you and send you a gift. I'm rocking my really old Chargers jersey. LaDainian Tomlinson. I think it's 15 years old. Junie's got her Tampa Bay Lightning beanie. Wrong sport, right city. Go Tampa, that's where my family lives. But we're excited you're here. We're so pumped for another great weekend. We are in the middle of our series, well, we just started it, called Starting Point. We're so excited about that. Make sure you use your Terra Nova app. You can find lots of cool things on there, including the Connect card. Start working on that. If you're a guest, you can fill that out too. We'd love to hear from you. Drop a prayer request in there. There's so many fun things on there. You can even see a new event that's coming up for Fix It Day. And there's so many ways that you can get involved and be part of our online gatherings, which you're already doing, and we're so excited about that. So we're gonna keep going, rolling through this really fun weekend. Make sure you are using your worship lyrics and message notes on the app. Those are so helpful. We're so excited to be together online, in our pajamas maybe, but it's okay. We're excited because we're going to jump into a time of worship now, so take out those worship lyrics.
It's Super Bowl weekend. It's also Jersey Day weekend. You can see a couple of us are representing up here. So glad if you're joining us online. Thank you. Hope you have a great experience. We're going to spend a little time as we start, as we always do or often do, singing and reminding ourselves, our minds and our hearts, just how good God's been, what his promises are to us, and that tomorrow can be better than today. So I want to encourage you to sing along. Lyrics are available on the Terra Nova app or on the Terra Nova website, the watch page. And if you're in the room with us, I want to invite you to stand up and let's make some noise in here and sing out. Sound okay? Okay. All right. You have to shout at me. I was buried beneath my shame. Who could carry that kind of weight? It was my tomb till I met you. I was breathing but not alive. All my failures I tried to hide. It was my tomb till I met you. You called my name and I ran out of that grave. Out of the darkness into your glorious day. You called my name and I ran out of that grave. Out of the darkness into your glorious day. Mercy has saved my soul. Oh, and your freedom's all that I know. Now your freedom is all that I know. The old made new. Jesus, when I met you, you called my name and I ran out of that grave. Out of the darkness into your glorious day. You called my needed rescue. I needed rescue. My sin was heavy. The chains break at the weight of your glory. I needed shelter. I was an orphan. Now you call me a citizen of heaven. When I was broken, you were my healing. And your love is the air that I'm breathing. Oh, I've got a future. My eyes are open. It's when you called my name. Hey. I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness, into your glorious day. You called my name, and I ran out of that grave. Oh, I'm still running out of the darkness into your glorious day. Fire, when everything is embers and my heart remembers you are here with me in the middle of the storm. When everything gets scattered, oh, my heart will not be shattered. I know that you are here with me. Whenever I call out your name, your answer always is the same. This truth that comes and sets me free. You are here with me. In the middle of the battle, well, this song will be my war cry. My heart cannot deny you are here with me. In the middle of the wilderness, surrounded by loneliness, when my soul cannot find rest, you are here with me. Whenever I call out your name, your answer always is the same. This truth that comes and sets me free. You are here. Whenever I call, come on. Whenever I call out your name, oh, your answer is the same. Your answer always is the same. is your name? Your answer always is the same. This truth that comes, it sets me free. You are here, here with me. Lord God, we're so grateful that no matter what we're facing, and I'm confident of this, that every one of us is facing something. God, we take great comfort in knowing that you are with us in the middle of that storm, that fire, that battle. God, you are there. We believe that you will never leave us. You will never forsake us. You and your spirit and your love will follow us to the ends of the earth, God. We're so grateful. We're so grateful. Your love never gives up on us, God. It chases us down. God, even when we try to run away, your love chases us. It follows us. Your goodness follows us. Your mercy, it follows us. It won't let up. It won't relent. And God, we are grateful for that. Spoke a word, you were singing over me. You've been so, so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathed your life into me. You've been so, so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, didn't deserve it. Still, you gave your life away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. When I was your foe, still your love fought for me. You've been so, so good to me. When I felt no worth, still you paid it all for me. You've been so, so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. No shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. No shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I didn't deserve it, till you gave your life away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God.
Let's take a moment to pray together. Lord, we thank you for that reality. We just recognize that in so many relationships, the case is our words, our actions, or even the posture that we've had towards somebody has caused a relationship to end. And I thank you for the freedom that we can have, knowing that no matter what we've done, no matter what we're working through, no matter the mistakes or the choices that are in our future, that you will never do that to us. You will never stop coming after us. You will never stop pursuing us, loving us, showing us your goodness and your grace. And so we thank you that we get to celebrate that and also to internalize that today. We love you, and we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, hey, everybody, it is so great to have you with us this week at Terra Nova. My name is Scott, and we would just absolutely love to hear from everybody who has joined us this week. And the best way to do that is to spend some time working on our Connect card, and our Connect card is available on our website. The Terra Nova app might be the easiest way to get that. We've also got paper Connect cards that are around as well, but our Connect card is really the vehicle just to kind of hear from people, to hear what's going on in one another's lives, any prayer requests, questions, issues that you go, hey, I would love to talk with somebody about this. And so we would encourage you to spend some time working on a Connect card right now. And we recognize this weekend is Super Bowl weekend, and so that means an awful lot to some people and nothing at all to others. And so here might be an interesting thing that you could do on that Connect card is maybe let us know if you're into the game. Who are you cheering for? Which team, maybe which quarterback are you cheering for? Okay. Others, you go, I'm not into the game at all. And for you, you could have some fun with that. You could let us know, what is the Super Bowl equivalent for you? I've got a friend who it is the Oscars, the Academy Awards. And so maybe it's something like that. Maybe it's the 4th of July. Maybe it's something completely different, but let us know what that is. Also, just a heads up, if you're watching and you're watching on Wednesday, you could pretend that you were cheering for the winning team all along, okay? So whatever it might be, but we would love to hear from everybody on that Connect card. So spend some time working on that. And for those who are part of the Terra Nova community, you've also got an opportunity to give, which you can do that in a few different ways. You can give on our app, give online on our website, or do the old-fashioned thing where you take that piece of paper and you mail a check and you put that in the mailbox. That's an awful lot of fun as well. But we have just been, again, continuously encouraged by really intentional generosity and like this purposeful stewardship. And so we recognize that, and we feel just really grateful to be a part of such a fantastic community. And so I would love to encourage you to be able to participate in that. And if you happen to be brand new to Terra Nova, and this is one of your very first times with us, hey, no pressure at all to do that part. We just want to let you know that we are grateful that you've joined us and are so thankful for that. And we actually would encourage you to fill out that Connect card. That would be just our hope, and so that we could follow up with you and thank you for being our guest and spending some time with us this week. You might have some questions about who we are as a church, and if you do, that would be a really actually logical place to land, because there are so many different churches and so many things that churches are known for and great things. And I happen to feel like Terra Nova is a very special and unique church. And so when people talk to us about what kind of community is Terra Nova, here's kind of the way that I land that answer is I say, Terra Nova is really all about being a community where we're figuring out what it means to follow Jesus and to do that as best as we can. And we've got people who are all over that spectrum who have been trying to do that for a long time and people who are brand new to that. But we do so in the context of community, where we are connected, we are known, we know other people, we encourage others. So community is important, but also just this mission that we have, which is to make God's love famous. And probably one of the best representations of all that coming together is an event that we actually have coming up next month. It is our annual Fix-It Day for single-parent families. And this is happening on Saturday, March 6th. It's a Saturday morning where we come out from 8 o'clock until noon, and we have a really special time. And so here's really the premise of it, is that all of us, we recognize, because we are human beings, that life sometimes is full of obstacles. And those obstacles, whether it be relationships or health or finances or jobs or whatever it might be, end up feeling a little bit daunting at times. And all of those obstacles can feel a lot more daunting when you're going through them alone. And so we seek to be a community that is all about making God's love famous, and to do that for people who might feel especially alone, or especially in a place where they're going, I would love some help with that. And so we love supporting our single-parent families, and we just seek to equip, to love, to resource them as best as we can. And this is a great opportunity, a great reflection of that. And so we come out to the hub here at 8 a.m. on Saturday, March 6th for a great breakfast. It's outdoors. Our barbecue team sets that all up. And then together we get placed in different assignments where we go, okay, this group of people is going to go to this place, and this group's going to go over here. And so it's a really cool opportunity to work in teams. And then we go out and we work on some house repairs for those single-parent families. And here's the beautiful thing about it, is that some of you go, oh, like household repairs, handyman stuff, like that is right up my alley, and this is perfect for you. And then there are others who say, you know what, that's not really my strong suit, but I'm willing. Could I still be used? And we would say, thumbs up, absolutely. Everybody can jump into this. And so we would encourage you just to consider going, hey, how can I be a part of that Terra Nova community that we really want to be, where we are focused on caring for people, making God's love famous, and doing that together. And so this is a great chance to do that. You can sign up on our app and on our website. And if you go, hey, I don't have those in front of me, use that Connect card. Just let us know. Fix-It Day, you want to be a part of it, and we'll get you set up for that. But again, information's on the app and on our website. And so we would just love to see a bunch of us out on Saturday, March 6th to be able to make God's love famous in the lives of our single-parent families. Again, thanks so much for being with us this week. We are so grateful that you are part of Terra Nova. And right now, we're going to jump into part 2 of our series called Starting Point. Let's check it out.
Everything has a beginning. It's a driving force in our human experience. Every person, every idea, every journey starts somewhere. Whether it's one small step in a new direction or a catalyst that ignites a spark. It's a moment when, from this point forward, nothing will ever be the same. It's not always comfortable. It's not always easy. But it is a start.
Hey,
welcome to Terra Nova. What a great weekend. It's Super Bowl weekend, and it's Jersey Day as well, of course. And by the way, it's Jersey Day both here and online. If you're watching online wearing a jersey, take a picture of yourself wearing your jersey, post it on your social media, tag us at our Terra Nova, and you could win valuable prizes. And by the way, if you're here in person and want to go home and do that, you still could win valuable prizes. But we are in part 2 of this series called Starting Point. And we started this series last week saying that everything really has a starting point. The universe had a starting point. You had a starting point. Your education path had a starting point. Your relationships, all of them had starting points. Your habits, good and bad, all had a starting point. There was a moment when something didn't just happen, it actually started, even whether or not you recognize that. But what we don't often notice is that faith actually has a starting point as well. And by faith, I mean whatever ideas or beliefs you might have about God or ultimate things, life beyond this life. Is there anything more? Faith, religion, or ideas that you don't have or used to have. Ideas maybe that were formed often in our childhood. That's frequently when that starting point is. Whether or not you were raised in a religious family, maybe you weren't raised in a religious family, but it was the family next door, or it was your grandma, or it was some people down the street. It was church, synagogue, mosque, temple, a school you went to, camp you went to, and maybe it was just ways that you picked up ideas as you went through your childhood, but you began to piece some ideas together. And for many of us, we began to formulate ideas that last week we called like a foundation of faith. Ideas like God is good, or God is love, God is everywhere, God is watching everything, God rewards the good people and punishes the bad people. And you began to form these ideas and you believed them, and they were simple, and maybe they even seemed obvious to you. And then something happened. You grew up. You got older, but often as we grow up, our ideas about God, our faith, our theology, if you will, doesn't grow up with us. And that childhood faith that was so simple that you took for granted in your earlier years, in many cases, it didn't stand up very well to the rigors and challenges and questions and pain and struggles of young adulthood or adulthood, and answers that satisfied your childhood curiosity that were just so simple, just believe and because God said so, now just seem to raise more questions and more frustrations. That God answers prayer and God heals. Okay, well, he didn't answer my prayer. And he didn't heal my mom. And God rewards good and punishes bad. Well, then why is it so often that so much evil seems to get rewarded and so much good seems to get punished? What's up with that? And Jesus loves the little children of the world. Sang that song when I was a kid. But he doesn't seem to love those children. Or if he does, why doesn't he do something to help them? And we could just go on and on and on all day, right? And you didn't necessarily mean for it to happen, and you might not have even noticed when it was happening. But over time, just life and disappointments and pain in our world and your own struggles and questions that you were beginning to ask or that were being raised around you, teachers, professors, other things that you were exposed to, just seemed to chip away at that foundation until it just seemed like maybe there wasn't anything left. And that's why we've recognized just around Terra Nova for years now that adults often need a new starting point, like a restart button for faith, because as adults, we begin to ask different questions, important questions. As adults, we struggle with some very serious challenges and some incredible possibilities, and often that childhood faith and those simple answers and those simple motivations aren't really adequate to take us through those seasons of our lives. But where do we begin? Where do you begin as an adult to restart this process? And last week I said something that was potentially controversial, that for many adults and for many young adults, restarting with, well, the Bible says, it isn't necessarily a helpful starting point because, and maybe this isn't you, but maybe it's somebody that you know, many of the things that the Bible says are actually part of the problem and struggles with faith that they have. But believe it or not, we said last week, the starting point for the first followers of Jesus was actually not the Bible. In fact, there was no the Bible, for the first few hundred years of the Jesus movement. There were documents from the Hebrew Scriptures. There were collections of documents that were circulating from biographies of Jesus and letters that were written, but there was no the Bible. And that means generation after generation of passionate followers of Jesus, men and women who were changing the world, whose faith, quite honestly, I think oftentimes dwarfs our own, did not begin with the Bible, with stories of Adam and Eve and Noah and the ark and David and Goliath. The first followers of Jesus started somewhere else, with a person and an event, with someone they knew and something that had actually happened that they saw with their own eyes, and it changed their world. Now, this is where we went last week, and if you missed last week and you're watching right now, you should probably push pause right now and go back and watch next week or last week first, because these weeks really build on one another. But this really was the starting point, and I think personally, it is the best starting point for adults. And there are many other questions that are good questions, and we should ask them and we should wrestle with them. But the question that tops them all, the question, the most important question that I think is the starting point that we need to wrestle down to the ground at some point as an adult, is this question right here: who is Jesus? Who is Jesus? And that's where they started, and that's where we left off last week. Now, we're going to circle back to that question in 3 weeks, so just hang on. But today, I want to tackle a word that often rears its ugly head in conversations about religion and faith. It's a word that we kind of flinch at. It's a grating word. It's like fingernails on a chalkboard, and it's an antiquated word. It's an old-fashioned word, a word that we don't use very often. It's this word right here: sin. Or as preachers would say, sin. You can't stretch that out into a couple of syllables, just make it bigger and badder, you know. But when you think about this word, this is kind of interesting. This word, sin, has become really purely a religious word. I mean, there is no other context other than maybe a dessert menu where that word would ever get used, right? I mean, parents, you don't tell your kids, you sinned against your mom, you're in timeout, you're grounded. Your boss doesn't call you in the office middle of the week because there are some sins on your expense report. Hey, we need to talk about these. Refs aren't going to be throwing sin flags. The Super Bowl, number 95, defense sinned in the backfield. 10-yard penalty, not going to happen. Police don't pull you over and give you a sin citation. Really, the only context in which that word is used is just really a religious word, right? And it's a word that carries a very heavy connotation. I mean, to acknowledge that something is a sin or to say something is a sin, it just feels so condemning. So condemning. It's like, I'm toast. I'm condemned. I sinned. I'm done. And there's not a lot of wiggle room with that word. There's not a whole lot of wiggle room with sin. It's like, well, yeah, but let me explain. See, it was my grandfather's sin, and then my dad's sin, and my mom always, and she never, and my inner child, and you just need to understand. To call something sin in myself is kind of like looking in the mirror and saying, there's the problem. It's me. Looking right back at me. And who wants to do that, right? So consequently, we use another word, and it gives us lots of wiggle room. And it's a terrible substitute for this word. It doesn't come close to reality, but it is definitely preferable for many of us. And it's this word right here: mistake. It was just a mistake, right? And we've all used this word a lot more than the other word. And we've heard other people use it too, right? So you've been watching TV and there's this politician, this public personality comes on the news and they got busted, right? And now they're going to come clean and they're going to admit it. And microphones get shoved in their face and they're like, I've made some mistakes, and they blew up their family and they ruined people's lives. They broke laws. They're going to jail. I mean, they torched their career and they have this contrite expression and they're like, yeah, I've made a mistake and I've made some mistakes. And you're thinking to yourself, wait a minute. That's not a mistake. That's not a mistake. I don't know what to call it, but it's not a mistake. See, a mistake is something you make on a math test, right? In school. A mistake is like when you said it was one thing and then you found out later it was another. Like you said it was red, but it was really green. It's like, oh, I made a mistake. Come on. A mistake is when you get a little turn around and you turn left on the street instead of right on the street. And you're like, That's a mistake. What you did, what you've been doing for the last 5 years, like that's, I don't know what to call it, but that is not a mistake. See, mistake, you know what mistake implies? Mistake implies that there's like insufficient knowledge or ability. It's like, oops, I didn't know. I thought it was, but I didn't really mean it. It was an accident. I didn't see it. I didn't see you. I didn't realize where that was going to lead. I didn't know where it was going to go. I couldn't control it. I plead ignorance. Oops, it was a mistake, but come on. I mean, as adults, we can be honest, can't we? That doesn't cover it all, does it? I mean, because we all know this. We all know this. This is something that's true about all of us because sometimes we make mistakes on purpose. We mistaked on purpose. I mean, think about it. Doesn't that describe somebody that you know? And if you're super honest and self-aware, isn't that true of you too? Like, I knew it was a mistake. I did it anyway. Wanted to. What do you call that? And sometimes we actually plan our mistakes. Now, what do you call a mistake that you planned? What do you call that? Some of us have bought tickets for mistakes that we were going to make months in advance, planned it, thought about it for a long time. Some of you have already planned your next mistake, already thinking about it. A premeditated mistake? Can there be such a thing? And some of us not only plan them, we keep a stash for them. We keep a stash of mistakes somewhere in our house. You got a drawer, you got a cabinet, there's a box out in the garage, and you're just hoping your mom doesn't find it, or your husband doesn't find it, your wife doesn't find it, your kids don't find it, because then what are you going to say? Like, oh, you found my mistakes. Like, what do you even say if that happens? And then it gets worse than that, because some of us, and I would say most of us, repeat our mistakes over and over and over again. Now, what do you call a person who repeats the same mistake over and over again? What do you call them? A serial mistaker? What do you call a person like that? See, mistake doesn't quite cut it, does it? It's worse than that. It's worse than that. Because you know what you do when you make a mistake? It's really simple. You correct it. That's what you do when you make a mistake. It's like, oops, you're right. I didn't carry the one. Didn't see that. Give me your eraser. I'll just fix it. Oh, I turned the wrong direction. What am I going to do? No problem. I'll just make a right up here, double back. I'll be on track again. But here's the truth. Some of our mistakes in life can't be corrected, can they? They can't be erased. You can't just fix it. And some of our mistakes, if we're really honest, we don't even want to. It's like even when you're not making that mistake and you're trying not to make it, there's something in us sometimes that actually wants to go back and make it again. And sometimes, this is super weird, sometimes when we've been really good and we haven't made that mistake, you know, that signature mistake that we make, we've been doing well. I mean, it's been weeks, maybe even months. And then there's this thought, there's this thing in us where I want to reward myself now for being so good by making the mistake because I deserve it. What is that? And what is wrong with us? And so maybe a baby step, just a baby step in this journey that we're trying to begin again would be to admit once and for all, mistake doesn't cut it. Mistake is not enough. It's worse than that. I'm not going to use that word again. It's worse than that. I am not a serial mistaker, and I'm not going to dumb it down. I'm a sinner. I'm a sinner. You know what sinner is? You know what sinner is? Here's a simple definition. It is not a good theological definition. But here's just maybe a baby step where we could just say, maybe that actually says something true about me. A sinner is somebody who knows that something's harmful, does it anyway. Knows that it's harmful, but does it anyway. Somebody who knows this is probably going to hurt me. It's probably going to harm people I love. It's probably going to ripple out negatively into my world and to people who I care about. It's probably going to damage some relationships. Want to, did it anyway. And Jesus talked about this kind of thing all the time. Jesus talked, because this is a big human problem. In fact, I think it is the human problem. But what you need to know as Jesus would talk about sin is that Jesus' purpose in talking about sin was never condemnation. It was always restoration. Jesus talked about sin a lot, but his purpose, his point was never condemnation. It was always restoration. We're like, oh, Jesus, don't talk about sin. Please don't talk about sin because I don't want to feel bad about myself. And if you talk about sin, I'll feel bad about myself. And Jesus is like, well, we have to. We have to because until we talk about what's really wrong, we can't ever make it really right. And I want restoration for you because, see, Jesus knew what we all know. We all know this. If we just think about it for a second, we've all experienced this, that mistakes don't really damage relationships, but sins damage relationships. Sins hurt relationships. They always damage relationships. They damage our relationships with others. Our sins damage our relationship with ourselves. And that could be a whole weekend, by the way, just talking about that. They damage our relationships with people who love us, people that we love and care about, and because God loves us and loves all of the people that we harm with our sin, including ourselves, it damages our relationship with God. And if you have ever experienced a break in a relationship, and we all have, if you've ever seen a relationship just get severed or split, and if you've ever been a part of that, it was because of sin. It is always because of sin, because there was something harmful in you that was in you and maybe came out of you or out in the things you did, or something harmful in the other that came out of them, or probably very often in both of us. But sin separates. Sin splits. Sin separates us from ourselves, separates us from one another, and it separates us from God. And Jesus knew this. Jesus knew this, that sin separates us, and he knew, and I think we all know, just instinctively, what needed to happen to restore the relationship, and it requires a lot more than a oops, sorry, oh, I made a mistake. That doesn't work with you because it's not real. It doesn't work in relationships when relationships have been separated because of sin. And Jesus knew, hey, sin separates, and acknowledgement and forgiveness restores us. And so Jesus' approach to this problem was really unusual. He began the conversation by actually raising the bar, by actually making things even worse. Instead of dumbing things down and watering it down, like, you know what, it's not so bad. Hey, nobody's perfect. Like, everybody does that kind of stuff. It's not so bad. Instead of lowering the bar, he actually raised it so high to show us that the problem was actually far, far worse than we think or know. And it's just so brilliant. Jesus was so brilliant, and it was so unusual because this was not the approach of any of the religions during Jesus' day. But his approach was this: your heavenly Father loves you and wants the relationship restored, like fully and completely restored. But it can't be restored if you keep harming it. And it can't be restored if you won't acknowledge it. And so Jesus came along and said, you think you've made a few mistakes? You think you're pretty good, but you've just made a couple of mistakes and you'll just take care of it and fix it? No. It is way worse than that. And he jacked the standard up so high that everybody looked up there and said, we're doomed. And he said, great news. I'm here for doomed people. I came precisely for those who see and know how doomed they are. But for those who think, I'm a pretty good person, I just made a few mistakes, I can't help them. So one day, this was a shock. Jesus says to this group of people, for I tell you that unless your righteousness, that is your right behavior, your goodness, surpasses that of the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, you certainly will not enter the kingdom of heaven. And they're like, what? Like, Pharisees and teachers of the law, listen, they were full-time rule followers. They were professionally religious and righteous. They not only followed all of the rules, they made up more rules and then followed those too. But, and you know this, following rules can't make you right. In fact, sometimes some of the best rule followers can be some of the worst people. And he says, if your righteousness, your kind of goodness doesn't surpass theirs, you'll certainly not enter the kingdom of heaven. And everybody's stomach just sinks. They're like, we're toast. We're doomed. Wait, Jesus, No one can be better than them. They are the best of the best. Jesus, what do you mean? And so Jesus gives an example, and he just starts jacking the bar up, up, up. And he says this, he goes, here's an example. You've heard that it was said to people long ago, thou shalt not murder. And they're like, yep, we heard that one. And anyone who murders will be subject to judgment. And they're like, yeah, Jesus got that one, but hey, I'm good. I'm actually as good as a Pharisee with that rule. And then Jesus adds this. He says, but I tell you, anyone who is angry with a brother or sister is subject to judgment. You may not have actually killed someone. You may not have actually crossed that line. Have you ever kind of wanted to? Have you ever kind of wished it upon someone? Wished harm, wished ill will? Have you ever nursed a resentment? If you read the whole context, this is exactly where he goes. Have you ever sought revenge? Have you ever canceled someone? Has any of that ever existed in your heart? And you're like, yeah, Jesus, but that's not what the rule says. But see, what's inside of us separates us and damages our relationships just as much as what comes out of us. Isn't that true? He says, you face the same judgment. And they're like, well, Jesus, we've all done that. I mean, this is impossible. We can't ever get to heaven. We are doomed. And then Jesus continues. In fact, he gives 6 examples. I'll just give you one more. He says, and you've heard that it was said, you shall not commit adultery. And they're like, yep, heard that one too. And you know what, Jesus? I'm good with that one too. I have not done that. And Jesus says, but I tell you, anyone who looks at a woman lustfully, oh, good grief. Are you... Jesus, are you kidding? I mean, are you serious? Is my wife here? Jesus, who hasn't done that? Who hasn't? So you're just saying we're all adulterers? We're all doomed, we're all condemned. And then he keeps going. He talks about the integrity of our words, the way we think and feel about enemies. And he calls all of them murderers, adulterers, liars, and haters. It's like the problem is so worse than you think it is. And nobody, by the time Jesus is done, nobody's pretty good, just made a couple of mistakes. And then as they all begin to say, and as we begin to say, so wait a minute, Jesus, are you just saying like we're just all condemned? Jesus smiles and says, that's why I'm here. I came for sinners. That's who I came for. So one day he's just surrounded by them. He's surrounded by a big group of some of the worst rule breakers in the world. It's tax collectors and sinners. Luke's biography of Jesus, chapter 15, tax collectors and here they are, sinners. They're gathered around Jesus. They're all gathered around because, and this is a group of people whose life philosophy is basically, hey, eat, drink, party, be merry, because tomorrow we die, and yeah, we're probably going to hell, but at least we'll know some people. Because we really have no other option. I mean, there's no way we're ever going to get to heaven. We've done too much, and and people like this were fascinated with Jesus. They loved being around him because Jesus so clearly did not condemn them. In fact, he liked them. He liked them, and they knew he liked them. They felt that even though he was nothing like them, even though he was clearly so very good and so very righteous. And so they're all gathered around listening to Jesus when the professional rule followers show up, the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, and they're muttering to themselves, here it is, this man welcomes sinners, welcomes them, and eats with them, and they're frustrated by that. That really frustrates them. He welcomes them. He doesn't condemn them. He doesn't cancel them. He doesn't denounce them. He doesn't shame them. And Jesus, they need to be denounced. And they need to be shamed because they're bad people. And they need to feel it. And everybody else needs to hear it. And Jesus realizes that neither one of these groups really gets it. And so he tells 3 stories about lost things. Not sinning things, lost things. Because Jesus believed that our sin makes us lost to God. It separates the relationship, and God doesn't want to be lost. See, when you lose something, it's separated from you. pretty basic, right? It's separated from you, and you don't want it to be separated from you anymore. And that's what sin does. Sin separates us from God, and God doesn't want us to be separated. And so Jesus tells 3 stories about this. And the first one is a story about one sheep out of 100 that gets lost, and a shepherd happily leaves the 99. We sing a song about this all the time. Leaves the 9 to find the one, because that's how God feels about lost things that are lost to him. And then the second story is about a woman who lost a coin. It's kind of like you when you've lost your wallet or you've lost a credit card, that panic you start to feel, and you clean the whole house, and you turn the car upside down, like searching for it till you find it. And that's what this woman does, because that's how God feels about things and people who are lost to him. And then comes the third story, and it's the most famous of all. It's the story of a son who separates himself from his father. And this is huge, because the first 2 stories, something gets lost, but it doesn't really mean to be lost. It doesn't try to get lost, it just happens to get lost. But the searcher loves it and wants it back so much that he leaves everything to find what's lost. And that's what God is like. But the third story is different, because we're not like a sheep and we're not like a coin. Because sometimes we get lost on purpose, and we meant to. So Jesus tells a story of a lost thing that gets lost on purpose. And there's this son, and he did not just make a mistake. Well, it was a mistake. What he does, and we won't go through the whole story, but what he does, just culturally speaking, it is so horrible. It is so unthinkable. It is so evil, so egregious. It's so horrible that the worst sinners in the crowd standing around listening to Jesus are thinking to themselves, that kid is messed up. That kid is horrible. I'd kill my kid. That kid, at least I'm not that bad. At least I haven't done what that kid did, because that is bad, and he deserves everything that's coming to him. He deserves some karma. You ever watch those instant karma videos on YouTube? Like somebody does something, and it's just kind of offensive, and then bam, like immediately there's comeuppance. It's like, oh, that feels so good. Like justice, right? And they're thinking, oh, this kid deserves everything that's coming to him. And the story seems to go in that direction. Seems to be coming to an end with the son getting exactly what he had coming to him. It's like, oh, he deserved it all. But then there's this twist. And to us, the twist is kind of heartwarming. I don't think it was heartwarming to Jesus' original audience. I think they were kind of disturbed by it. I think they were a little bit upset by it, because the son realizes what he's done and how badly he's messed up. That he didn't just make a mistake. He really blew things up. And so he decides that whatever the cost, to his ego, to his pride, whatever the cost, he is going to try to return with no expectation that his dad will ever take him back, because he would never deserve, after what he did, to be taken back. And he's thinking, maybe, if my dad has mercy on me, he'll let me be one of the servants. I can bunk with the other ranch hands back in the, in the barn on the back 40, and I don't ever have to see him, but I could just maybe there could be mercy. So he comes home. He comes home, the crowd is, the saints and the sinners are going, what? The nerve of that kid, he's going to try to go home, after what he's done, he's made his dad the laughing stock of the town. He's brought so much shame. He's going to try to go home. This kid is out of control, and he tries to come, and the son, Jesus says, comes home, and while he was a long way off, the father sees him like, oh, this is going to be good. I hope he serves up this revenge dish ice cold, because it's going to be so good. Just wait to see what the father does. And the father sees him from far off, and he's filled with indignation. It's actually not what Jesus said. No, he's filled with pain and hurt. Just brings back all those memories. That would be understandable. That's not what Jesus says either. He's filled with condemnation. That's what we'd be filled with. That's what our culture is filled with, isn't it? It's not what the Father's filled with. He's filled with compassion. He's filled with compassion for his son. And he runs to him. He runs to his son, and he throws his arms around him, and he kisses him. And by this point in the 3 stories, everybody knows that to Jesus, this father represents this God type in the story, and the son represents somebody who is messed up so bad that there is no hope that the relationship could ever be restored. It is too far gone. And in the story, as the father's arms are draping over and embracing the son, I wonder if all the sinners look at each other like, what? Maybe some eyes start to well up just a little bit. Could that be true? Could that be true for me? Could the Father feel that way about me? And so then Jesus puts these words in the Son's mouth. And the Son says to him, Father, I have sinned. Father, I have sinned. Not, okay, all right, I admit it. Okay, I made some mistakes, but you need to understand, and this was my fault, and you always seem to prefer the older brother, and the economy went bad, and there's this virus, and there was a famine, and there were things that I couldn't control. I have sinned. I've sinned, and here's, just put a little pause on this. For some of us, maybe some of you watching, you have never honestly said those three words. No spin, no story. I have sinned. I have sinned, he says, against heaven, meaning I've sinned against God. There's a spiritual component to this. And I've sinned against you. And I don't deserve ever to be called your son. In other words, I recognize the relationship is destroyed. The relationship is broken, and I broke it. I broke it. My sin destroyed our relationship. That's on me. And the son has zero entitlement. He's zero expectation. He's just hoping for mercy, hoping for some mercy. But the father immediately knows that the son recognized what he needed to recognize, that he gets it. He gets it, and he's back. He's owned what he needed to own for there to be healing and restoration. I have sinned against heaven and against you. And mid-apology, the father turns and starts talking to his servants, calling out to people who are back at the house, quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. We're like, wait, hey, father, dad, don't you want to hear where he's been and what's happened? No, don't need to. Everybody knows where he's been. It's been all over social media. Don't need to hear the story. Doesn't he need to explain himself a little bit more? No, I can see it in his eyes. He owns it. And now we can be restored. Jesus is putting these words in the dad's mouth, and he says, for this son of mine was dead. I'm like, dead? No, he wasn't dead. Like I said, he was out of town. He was out of control, but he wasn't dead. And the father would say, no, to me, he was dead because our relationship was dead. And now, he's alive. He was lost. I mean, I knew where he was. Everybody knew where he was, but he was lost to me. The relationship was lost to me, and now he's found. And what made him alive? And what made him found? What changed? The answer is simply the fact that he returned and he acknowledged his sin, not his mistakes, and he acknowledged the damage that he'd done. So, the story says, so they began to celebrate. And what were they celebrating? They were celebrating the restoration of a relationship. The restoration of a relationship that would not have been restored if the son had not come to his senses and recognized it's not just that I'm a bad money manager and I made a few mistakes, but then other things weren't and nobody's perfect. He recognized, I sinned against God, and I sinned, Dad, I sinned against you, and I destroyed our relationship. And the father says, now we celebrate. Now we celebrate because the relationship has been restored. Now, here's the point. Whether or not you're ready to believe Jesus or anything about Jesus, or whether or not you're ready to believe Jesus' worldview or how he sees God or how he sees you, here's the point of the story. Recognition of sin paves the way to restoration. And that's true in all relationships, and it's true spiritually speaking as well. The recognition of sin paves the way to restoration. Or you could put it this way, it's simple enough. Acknowledging my wrong is the first step to making things right. It always is. Acknowledging my wrong is the first step to making anything right. And we would all love to think of ourselves as mistakers, right? We're just mistakers who we need to work on it and maybe correct our mistakes and try a little harder, but we know better, don't we? We know better. We know it's worse than that. And here's the thing, as long as we're telling ourselves that it's just a mistake, we will never seek the thing that we need most to bring restoration, because mistakes don't require forgiveness. Sin does. Mistakes don't require forgiveness. You excuse a mistake, right? You excuse it because, oh, hey, yeah, you didn't know and you didn't see it, you didn't realize, and you didn't see that, you didn't know you need to carry the one. I understand you just excuse a mistake, but there is a big difference between excusing a mistake and forgiving a sin. There's a huge difference, we talked about this before, between excusing someone and forgiving someone. There's a huge difference between excusing someone for something that's excusable. Because I got a story and I didn't know and I didn't realize and I understand, yeah, that's no big deal. And forgiving someone for something for which there is no excuse. There is no excuse, and there's no excuse or explanation that could possibly make a difference. I knew what I did. I knew it was harmful. I did it on purpose. And then I did it again and again and again, and I damaged our relationship. I have sinned. Could you possibly ever forgive me? Could I return? And Jesus saw that. Jesus saw the acknowledgement of sin as a means to an end that we could not ever get to any other way. And so his purpose of talking about sin was never condemnation, always, always restoration, because Jesus knew what we all know when we think about it, what we've all experienced. Sin damages relationships. And if you want to take Jesus' worldview and think about it the way he thinks about it, here's Jesus' worldview. Sin has damaged our relationship with our Heavenly Father. Our sins against ourselves and our sins against others have damaged our relationship with our Heavenly Father, that in one way or another, we are all the Son who got ourselves lost and did it on purpose. And failure to truly own it just makes things worse. It always makes things worse. And so acknowledgement of my sin, it is not a path to condemnation. It is the only path to restoration. And your Heavenly Father can't wait to throw a party for your return. Now, all this leads up to part 3 of the series for next week. Do not miss next week, and we'll leave it off right there. But as I end, I want to leave you with a couple of questions, so don't tune out. Before you tune out, let me throw a couple of questions that you can discuss around your home, or if you're listening to this on the podcast, you can talk about this maybe with people in the car with you or so forth. But here's a couple of questions for you to think about. The first question is this: have you ever used that word mistakes to refer to what you did? I mean, we all have, right? Come on. Have you ever referred to something that, honestly, is a sin as a mistake? Why do you think we do that? Why do you think you have done that, preferred that word? Now here's another question. Do you kind of resist the idea that just maybe you might be a sinner who sins instead of a mistaker who was mistaken? Oops, I was mistaken. Is that maybe kind of offensive a little bit? And if so, why? And if not, why not? Just a couple of questions for you to think about as we get ready for next week and pick it up right there for part 3 of our series, Starting Point. Don't miss it. Will you close in prayer with me? Heavenly Father, I want to thank you for this brilliant, just unbelievable, and really just culturally speaking, in Jesus' day, just this out of the blue worldview that you love us recklessly, relentlessly, pursuing us. You love us so much, and we lose ourselves to you, and you aren't okay with that. You want that relationship restored. I just thank you for that. I thank you for grace. I thank you for that love that you have, that you see us as son and daughter, even when we've run away from you and did it on purpose. And so I just pray for all of us, for our own just self-awareness and self-honesty over the course of this next week and over the course of this series, that we come to see things in our lives as they really are, not because that might bring condemnation, but just possibly because that could be the path towards restoration, not only with our relationship with you, but actually with our relationship with others and even with ourselves. And so I pray that in Jesus' name, amen. Well, hey, before you leave, thank you so much for joining us online and in the room. Again, once more, we'd love to get that Connect card from you, so please do that before you sign off. Let us know how you're doing. Let us know where you're watching from, maybe even what day of the week you're watching. You can let us know what's going on in your life. If there's anything we can do to come alongside you and support you through anything that's happening in your life, please just let us know what's going on, and we will do everything we can to help you out. And it's actually because of your generosity that becomes possible, and so you have this opportunity to give all the time. It's on the app, it's on our website, and of course you have that opportunity right now. And for those of us who are here in person, there are envelopes out on the tables that you can grab on your way out. You can always mail checks in to 7 Watney. And by the way, while you're on the app and doing those things, sign up right now for Fix It Day. There's a button on the app, and there's a link on our Terra Nova homepage that will take you to a form where you can sign up. No experience necessary, as we just seek as a community to bless some of the people in our community who could just use a little extra love these days. And then don't forget, we've added a new 9:30 service to our Sunday mornings, and we would love to see you as soon as you're feeling okay to come out and join us outside in the parking lot. It's beautiful and it's wide open spaces. We'd love to see you. God bless you guys. Have a fantastic week. We'll see you back next weekend for part 3 of Starting Point.